What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Parlay Buddy Show. I'm your host, Malachi David, and I am here with another 4 premium picks for you for the Divisional Round weekend. It's going to be an exciting week of football as we get one step closer to the Super Bowl. But before we get into this week's videos, I just want to remind you of all the social media platforms you can find Parlay Buddy on. You can find us on Reddit, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also head over to YouTube. Be sure to hit the like on this video and subscribe for more content from us. Also head over to parlaybuddy.com where you'll find various sports articles, the profitability calculator, daily fantasy sports tools powered by statshark.com, and more NBA premium picks. Now, without further ado, let's get into this week's picks. The first game we're going to look at this week is the Jaguars versus the Chiefs. The line for this game has been set at 53, and on that line, we are taking the over. The Jaguars have hit the over 9 times so far this year, and they have scored 3 touchdowns or more in 10 games. They do average 23.8 points per game. They kind of rank in the middle of the pack in terms of both offensive and defensive production. They're not a spectacular team by any means, but they do the job. Obviously, they've made it this far. They have proven not to be a spectacular first half team, but as we saw last week, after throwing 4 interceptions in the first half under Trevor Lawrence, that this team can pull together and come back and win a game. They're going to need to play the whole game like they played the second half last week against the Chiefs, though, if they do want to stand a chance. The Chiefs have hit the over 8 times this year, including 3 of their last 5, and they have scored 3 or more touchdowns in 13 of their games this year. They've scored 24 points or more in 14 games, and their offense is arguably the best in the league. They are averaging 29.2 points per game, which ranks first in the league. They also average 308.8 passing yards per game, which also ranks first in the league. It wasn't long ago, early in the season, when we thought that this offense would struggle without Tyreek Hill, but it just goes to show how great they have, how great of a coaching staff they have, how great Patrick Mahomes is. Honestly, this team hasn't missed a beat, and they might even be better than some of their Super Bowl iterations. So, with that team firing on all cylinders and the Jaguars more than likely going to have to throw the ball a lot this week, with the line of 53, that is why we are taking the over. The second game we're going to look at this week is the Giants versus the Eagles. The line for this game has been set at 48, and on that line we are taking the under. The NFC East is very well represented this weekend, especially with the Giants and Eagles playing each other. Last time these two teams faced off, the line was actually set at 36. Again, a few more points to play with this time. But the Giants have actually hit the under 10 times this year, and they have scored 2 touchdowns or less in 10 games and have only had 3 games this season where they have scored more than 24 points. They do average 21.5 points per game. Kind of puts them in the middle of the pack for the NFL. It's not bad, not great though either. They average 201.8 passing yards per game, which is 27th in the league. They will have to rely a lot on Saquon Barkley, or they're going to have to look for Danny Dimes to really show that he is a, talented quarterback. He shows glimpses of it, but he's going to need a full game of it this week, especially if they want to advance. On the other side of the ball, the Eagles have hit the under 7 times this year, including 3 of their last 4 games. They started off as a very high-powered offense, but the last month or so they've kind of trickled off. They've scored 2 touchdowns or less in only 2 of their games, but have scored 24 or less in 7 games. So they do have games where the offense just doesn't quite click, but thankfully for them, they do have a top-tier defense as well. That defense probably will hold its own against this New York Giants team. They've seen each other twice already this season. Playoffs, the defense is really going to step up, and the Giants, with their struggles, they might not score a lot, so the Eagles also will not have to. So we just do not seeing this going over 48. So that is why we are taking the under. The third game we're going to look at this week is the Bengals versus the Bills. The line for this one has been set at 48.5, and on that line we are taking the over. This game was one of the most anticipated regular season matchups, and it was cut short due to the unfortunate circumstances surrounding Damar Hamlin. Thankfully, he has recovered, and now these teams get to face off once again, but there's a lot more on the line for both teams this time, as now it's win or you're gone. The Bengals have hit the over 7 times this year, including 3 of their last 4, and they have scored 3 or more touchdowns in 12 games this season. They average 26.1 points per game, which ranks 7th in the league. They also rank 3rd in passing yards per game. I remember at the beginning of the season, there was questions surrounding the Bengals and whether or not they were that same team that made it to the Super Bowl last year. And honestly, I think they've proven over the length of the season that they might be a better team. The only downside for them is that they do have 3 starting linemen that will not be playing this week. But Joe Burrow proved last week that didn't matter. He adjusted his style of play, and for most of his career, he's been used to being chased around in the pocket, and he's thrived. So I don't see that fully affecting the way the Bengals play or the amount of points that they can put up. The Bills have hit the over in 7 games this year, including their last 4, and have scored 3 touchdowns or more in 12 games. They've also scored 24 points or more in 13 of their 17 games this year. They are a very high-powered offense, much like the Kansas City Chiefs. They average 28.4 points per game, which ranks 2nd in the league. And they've scored half of the total set for this game just about every week. I mean, Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, Dawson Knox has really come on. This whole team is capable of, getting open at any point, and obviously when you have a quarterback of Josh Allen's caliber, you're going to be able to throw the ball around as much as you want. This is a high-flying matchup. Both offenses have tons of weapons. Their defenses, can be hit or miss, but this game is definitely going to come down to a lot of points in our opinion, and that is why we are taking the over. And last but certainly not least, we're going to look at the Cowboys versus the 49ers. The line for this game has been set at 46, and on that line, we are taking the over. Now, if you're anything like me, born in the late 80s, early 90s, this is a matchup that you grew up watching, and it's definitely an exciting one to see kind of play out, especially with both teams playing as well as they are. The Cowboys have hit the over 9 times this year and have scored 3 touchdowns or more in 11 games. They've also scored 23 points or more in 13 games this season. They average 27.5 points per game, which ranks 4th in the league and is well over half of the point total for this week's game. Their offense with Dak has been absolutely phenomenal, especially down the stretch here. They've put up a couple 50-point games, a few 40-point games. This team seems to be arguably one of the best Dallas teams we've seen since the 90s. And honestly, they're going to probably put up a decent amount of points. The 49ers defense is good, but their secondary does struggle, and passing is a huge part of what Dallas has been successful with lately. So Dallas will definitely, I'd say they at least get to their average. They'll probably cover maybe 30 plus points of the spread this week. On the other side, the 49ers have hit the over 10 times this year, including their last 4 games, and they've scored 3 touchdowns or more in 12 games this season. They average 26.5 points per game, which ranks 6th in the league, so you have 2 top 10 scoring offenses facing off. This Sunday night game is going to be an intense one. Brock Purdy, this is going to be his first real test, so to speak. Definitely the best team that he's faced off against. He's definitely played the part of a winning quarterback, but the Cowboys are definitely going to prove to be a different test. But this will definitely be a high-scoring, kind of run-and-gun type game. So that is why we are taking the over. And that is it for this week's coverage of the divisional round from Parlay Buddy. I'm your host, Malachi David. Thank you all for tuning in. Be sure to check us out on all social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, Instagram, and TikTok. Also be sure to head over to YouTube, like this video, and subscribe to the channel. Also head over to parlaybuddy.com where you can find the profitability calculator, daily fantasy sports tools powered by statshark.com, and various sports articles. And coming soon, we will have a weekly video, possibly daily videos for NBA premium picks. So if you're a basketball fan like me, you'll want to stay tuned for that. With that being said, enjoy this week's games.